I think we are live. Hi, welcome everybody. When I decided to leave the number crunching aspect of the actuarial profession, this was about 15 years ago, I knew that I wanted to work with risk and that I wanted to learn a lot. Maybe this is a reason why I ended up being head of operational risk and risk reporting at the Hannover Group because I didn't have much idea about these topics. And at the time, it was that all the non quantitative topics they would end up in my department. So little did I know at the time that it would open a world of possibilities where my curiosity had no boundaries and where there was and there still is a lot to learn. So, welcome to this live on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube about risk and beyond. In case you don't know me, I'm Caroline Gregoire, and I love helping impact driven leaders find meaning, clarity, and joy at work and have the time and the energy to live their life to the fullest. I do so in English, French, German, and Swedish. I have a background as an actuary and a risk manager. I worked in different countries and in various leadership positions. And for the last 8 years, I've been working as a coach, mentor, trainer, moderator, and keynote speaker. And I focus my work on topics like leadership, communication, resilience, strategy, and also culture. And today I have a guest, and my guest has been described as actuary, leader, innovator, teacher, and entrepreneur. He has been involved internationally in the reinsurance, actuarial, and risk fields for more than 40 years. When he was chief actuary and chief risk officer of the Hannover Group, he succeeded to have the first approval for an internal model in Europe. Even if he has now retired, he remains active in the Aston board and also as a risk consultant. Currently, he lives his life in full trains. More about that later. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one and only Eberhard Müller.
Hello.
Hi, Eberhard. I'm so happy that you're here and so glad that you and we are having this conversation about risk and beyond. To all of you listening, if you have any question during the live, feel free to write them in the comments. We will take them during the conversation. I see that Mike can see the video and he can hear fine. That's at least what I understand. So, Eva Hart, so much experience you have, and you're ready to share with us. Your path seems quite a journey of development over all these 40 plus years. It's quite an achievement. What's kept you going all this time?
Oh, to put it into a nutshell, curiosity and my game playing attitude. So, to give you an example, when I started working with Hannover back in 1982, I was so excited about the first predecessors of personal computers, namely a little machine called Sharp PC 1500, that I thought everybody should have the ability to play around with these kind of machines. Fortunately enough, I got the backing of my former boss, the founder of Hannover, Klaus Bingemer, and he allowed me to buy several of these machines and to train the people in using them. Later, I took over as actuary the full responsibility of all personal computers of Hannover and kept this responsibility until 1993, independent from the centralized IT department. My department then was called MSP, Mathematics, Statistics, and Personal Computer. but with my German colleagues, it was better known as Müller's Spielparadies, Müller's playground.
Yeah, I was one of your employees at the time of Müller's playground, and we worked together for many years. I have always appreciated your analytical, technical, strategic, and also soft skills. I did learn a great deal from you. And I'm now also interested to know how much of your gut feeling did you use in the decisions that you had to take?
The gut feeling. That's something you get not trained at university. Um, you have to develop it on your own. Um, at university, you are trained to use sophisticated methods on tons of data. But whether you can trust the quality of the data, you have to find out yourselves. Who is giving you the data? Do people give you misleading data on purpose? For example, to reduce prices. Are data selected or even manipulated to hide reserve inadequacies? So here you have to develop your own gut feeling, which data you can trust. And you have, of course, also to establish systems, data quality checks that assist you with your gut feeling. Another important gut feeling aspect is when it comes to people, hiring people as addition to your staff. Even the best CV is not replacing your impression when talking personally to the people. And that was one of the reasons for me to travel around attending conferences and seminars and looking and talking to interesting people, which I thought might be a good addition to my staff. And one of these examples is now Chief Risk Officer of our mother company.
Yeah, I think that's a great strategy that you've been using all this time. Well, in hiring of staff, and as you say, in trusting the data, and I think that the gut feeling plays a much bigger role than we are even conscious of. But I thought it was interesting to hear it from you in which aspects of your work it did play a role. Um, when I was working with risk, I mentioned before, like my focus was more on the qualitative aspects of risk management. I realize, in fact, that the human factor aspect in a company or in a business may be the one aspect that actually is rather difficult to grasp and almost impossible to quantify. Still, it can also be the riskiest aspect, I believe. What is your opinion about that?
Yeah, in several of my presentations, I used as an introductory slide the three greatest risks of a company: the CEO, the CFO, and the chief actuary. Actually, that was later backed by a research done by the International Actuarial Association in one of the latest chapter added to the risk book in 2023. They analyzed 10 defaults of the last 25 years of insurance companies. And while the obvious reasons always were more or less under reserving, underpricing, or risky investments, the factor behind this was, in the majority of the cases, very influential, very special personality as CEO, and a good relation between the CEO, the CFO, and also the chief actuary. In selecting the data, they showed to the public according to their intentions, which sometimes differed from the truth. So when it then were obvious that reserves were not stated as they should have been, or prices were not set as they should have been, and investments went sour because of the risk, then it was too late. Companies had to go into insolvency, or in the case of AIG, a 160 billion bailout by the government. And the reasons, more or less, were these human factors you were mentioning, were the persons putting pressure on the technical staff and on the responsible bodies to hide certain aspects.
Mm, mm, mm. I also recall, well, if we leave the insurance world, I also recall the huge cruise ship, the Costa Concordia, I think, that
Yeah,
hit a rock somewhere in the Mediterranean Sea.
that
And
was
I think, yeah, it was the same, something similar in the sense that I think the captain wanted to impress somebody. Of course, I'm sure he didn't have the intention to hit a rock, but many things then didn't work out the way
yeah, and here
it was supposed to
exactly
happen.
the important factor was there was a first responsible officer. There were others who could have made the impact. They
Mm,
did not, because the captain was so a highly
mm.
influential person that nobody dared to do something against his actions. So may I come shortly back to the IAA risk book?
Yes, yes, yes.
The IAA risk book, for the audience as a hint, is a very comprehensive electronic book you can easily access by simply typing IAA risk book in your browser. And this is circulating around several qualitative aspects of risks, for example, operational risk, but also is another kind of human factor, the consumer behavior, just to pick some of the aspects. And as a hint, both of us, Caroline and me, we were authors and co-authors of various chapters of this risk book.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, thank you for mentioning this, Eberhard. But nowadays, especially for financial institution, there are like supervisory regimes that want to make sure that companies will stay solvent. Like if I think about Solvency II or all the Basel frameworks for the banks and similar approaches. What do you think that their weaknesses are when we're thinking about these solvency regimes?
Now, in one sentence, partially over-engineered systems and underestimation of the human factor we just discussed. There are so many examples, as I just mentioned in the risk book, where even recently, brilliant personalities were convincing supervisors that everything is running well because they were able to ticking the right boxes in the supervisory systems for quite a while. And finally, it turned out that the company, despite ticking the right boxes, went sour. One of the personal examples I have when it comes to operational risk is Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank had such a fine-tuned, probabilistic, actuarial-driven assessment tool for assessing operational risk that it was praised by the regulator and given to me as an example. Finally, it turned out that it did not prevent either the LIBOR scandal nor many other scandals Deutsche Bank entered in. And I think the only solution, and I say this as actuary, the only solution is a process-oriented approach in addition to all those fine-tuned ticking the box systems.
Mm, mm. I think though even the process approach needs to be careful in the sense that it also should not just be a ticking the box exercise.
Yeah, of course. Finally, you can end up every system being a ticking the box exercise.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
I
but
think
here, just to mention this, but here there is another aspect that I learned over the time, talking to the people. So instead of ticking the boxes, talking to the people, trying to convince them if there is a necessity of a process improvement and giving them incentives. So when you go to a subsidiary for rolling out your risk management system and show them if they improve their processes, they can benefit from less capital allocated to their operation, then this might work. That's my personal experience.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. I agree with you. I also think that sometimes some of these frameworks in risk management and the regulatory frameworks, they look at things in very much detail, and it's easy to lose sight of the big picture. And I think that's why also these committees, like if we're talking about a risk committee and so on, that's why it's important to have strong structure at all different levels, at the yes detail level, but also at a higher up level, so that the big picture is also understood.
I have to be a little bit cautious because the situation may have changed and hopefully into the positive side since I did all the discussions in the wake of establishing the Solvency II regime. And hopeful, not only mine but other arguments contributed to what you just mentioned, caring about the real risks and going a little bit away from the ticking the boss exercises. But when I currently have a look at the IFRS 17 discussion, then there are certain doubts in my mind. Okay.
Mhm, mhm. Um, I would like to see the reaction of some of our viewers, but let's see. Let's continue. Maybe. Um, what is, according to you, your experience, what is the most important skill that someone who works with risk, whether it's on the quantitative side, qualitative side, whether it's an underwriter or even a business owner, that they would need to develop during their career?
Now, you just mentioned it. It's a holistic view of
Mm,
risk. So, on the quantitative side, that means that risk consists of both of positive and negative realizations, and you have to view both simultaneously. You can't just divide into risk being the negative results and leave others to evaluate the positive side, sometimes called as chance. I learned this aspect already at university. So this holistic view for risk quantification is essential. But then later, this holistic view has to be broadened. So it has to be broadened to combine the quantitative and the qualitative risk management. And only this, if an actuary, for example, is able to broaden his mind, not just thinking of his results, but also what will be his results used for? What will his results be used for? And how do I avoid a misuse of my results? Then this aspect of broadening the risk view by qualitative aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, also the field you are active in, the communication of results. It's also one of these qualitative aspects. You are, at least in my time, not educated about when visiting school or university.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the topic of communication is very important as well. That an actuary or risk expert is able to communicate his or her finding, and at the same time knowing that this is the situation as of today, and that he or she is able to even challenge that. I think that's what you also mean. To what are the impact of the results that they have. They need to be able to understand that. Eberhard, when you look at your 40 plus years in your career in the actuarial and risk fields, what would you describe as your greatest takeaway, or your most important lesson? The one that we don't learn in books at all.
Yeah, that's, as I just described, the journey from a quantitative actuary to a holistic risk manager.
Mm,
I will describe it step by step. When I started at Hannover back in 1982, I was the quantitative guy, calculating reserves, checking prices, and all this stuff. And later it was be broadened, for example, to do natural catastrophe modeling with sophisticated tools, but all was on the quantitative side, and all was working with tons of data. Even when combining all those quantitative aspects in the first version of Hannover's internal model by the early 2000s, that was still quantitative stuff.
mm, mm,
And then happened something that was a boost for my learning curve and for my career too. That was when Standard and Poor's came out in 2004 with their requirements for enterprise risk management. And one of the requirements was to have an high ranked, influential chief risk officer for the group who is reporting directly to the chairman or at board level. So I then went to our former boss, Willy Zeller, and told him, look, Standard and Poor's is requiring this, so I'm your guy. And that
and he
worked.
agreed.
That worked. I was then adding qualitative risk management to my responsibilities, and was over the years from 2004 until my retirement in 2016, was learning a lot about this aspect of risk management. And I had a lot of discussions about this with people who needed still to be convinced, because qualitative risk management was not so popular at these times in the actuarial community. Now it is. Now there's no doubt. Now everybody knows about the importance. But at this time, adding qualitative risk management to my personal knowledge, I think that was the greatest takeaway for me personally.
Hmm. 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 Thank you for sharing this. Thank you very much. Um, There was a question I got a few days ago from someone who wanted to be here today, but who can't make it. And the question is about artificial intelligence. Hmm?
Ah,
Um, we all know that it's here to stay, and it's growing exponentially. So, how do you think that it will influence the risk field, whether we're looking into the actuarial aspect or underwriting or the business as a whole?
it's a great tool. Artificial intelligence is maybe a similar great tool than my Sharp PC 1500 back in 1982 when it comes to create solutions and good solutions out of existing knowledge. But as we all know, it's not only the word artificial, which should make you careful. It's also the fact that all systems, for example, Chat GPT, are feeded by with existing knowledge until a certain point of time. And all the solutions artificial intelligence is creating is based on this type of knowledge until this specific point of time. And all what is currently created, uh, what is created now and in the future by humans is not included in the basis of the current use of artificial intelligence. And therefore, I think artificial intelligence, it's a similar powerful tool like personal computers were in the mid 80s, but it does not replace the creativity and human factor when going forward.
Hmm. 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 Yeah, yeah, I agree with you here. Also think that, I mean, I think it can improve processes extremely, but still, there will always be large bits and pieces where something will be missing because we won't be able to always use the past to kind of predict the future, you know.
But
And
as you should know, I like to play around. So when opening Chat GPT and giving a certain topic and looking what this is producing, it's amazing. So
Mhm,
it's yeah,
mhm, mhm. It's in
it's
fact amazing. Mm,
yeah,
mm, mm. But I think it could even limit because you and I, we spoke a few times about the black swans, um, which, are things that cannot really be things you would not expect at all.
yeah.
But that you could workshop
Interesting
with
as well.
people, just like start talking about something, out of
Interesting aspect. Yeah.
creativity. Mm.
So yeah, artificial intelligence is producing risks of a new kind because what is done by artificial intelligence may be hugely misleading and nobody is discovering
Mm.
it until
Mm.
something happens. And
Mm.
the things that are happening then may be so called black swans,
Mm.
which in no scenario and no
Mm.
forecast environment are described. I think one of those black swans was the 9/11 event when it happened back in 2001. Others were, at least in the reinsurance field, the damages caused by Hurricane Katrina in the Mexican Sea, and not the property damages. No, nobody had on their screen the damages caused on land because the facilities to transport the oil further were destroyed. The oil platforms were still intact, but the oil couldn't be transported somewhere, and that caused billions of dollars of losses, which later were described as a black swan of the marine risk assessment.
Mm.
Okay, I'm talking too much about
No,
this.
no, no, because I read the book The Black Swan years ago, but there's a quote I never forgot, and it is the problem with experts is that they do not know what they do not know. And I think it's that is maybe also like this with AI. It doesn't know what it doesn't know. It doesn't know its own limitation. But thank you
Coming,
for, yeah.
what I would like to add is one of the beauties of probability theory. Because in probability theory, you have a probabilistic curve of potential outcomes, may it be losses, and potential probabilities related to them. And on my probabilistic curve, I could show you, because I have it still on records, the loss of 4.5 billion US dollars from an aviation event had the probability of 1 in 500 years. I had no clue what had to happen to make three aircrafts colliding or something like this. But when 9/11 happened, the first loss assessments were exactly 4.5 billion. I could look at my curve and could see, oh yeah, there was a positive probability attached to this magnitude of losses without knowing exactly what has to happen that this occurs. And again, this is one of the advantages of probability theory. You don't have to imagine scenarios. You can simply add probabilities or connect probabilities and values without knowing what has to happen then.
Hmm. 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 Yeah, very useful tool. Thank you, Eberhard. Um, um, some people like to say, life is full of risk, although the probability that each of us will die during this lifetime is 100% so far. So when I say no risk, no fun, um, what is your understanding about this?
Now, when I did my job, I always did it with fun, and I also tried to make others believing that the fun part is an undividable part of risk. So a risk assessment without fun would not be possible. So when you say it a little bit serious, a little bit more serious, no risk, no fun, that means positive and negative has to be viewed holistically. Huh?
Hmm. Hmm.
Positive being the fun, negative being the pain. When it comes to working with people, and people, when doing heavy jobs, assessing risks with powerful tools, and you have an environment where people are inspired to use these tools with more a playing attitude than a big burden,
Hmm.
then this is certainly helpful. And I tried, uh, at least with the means I had, to create such an environment and doing risk assessment. Here, no risk, no fun was a very obvious part of my management strategy.
Uh, Thank you so much for sharing this. I hope that it inspires other people and having a similar, yeah, leadership approach. We're coming a little bit to the end to kind of less serious stuff. If I would ask you, how would you describe yourself? What would you say?
Yeah, I think, as you may have seen over the last couple of minutes, I'm more or less a grown up child, which still likes to play around, and especially with model trains.
How many locomotives do you have?
So currently, I am very lucky living here in Portugal and having my own large garden where I could build my own miniature wonderland on a larger scale than in Hamburg. So the one to 22.5. And I have around 50 engines, 24 of them fully digital, that can be steered by mobile app or by tablet. The other 26 analog. And currently, 9 engines can run simultaneously without having to
A black
control
swan.
them. So, yeah. So here, when sitting in my garden and looking at the circulation of these trains, that's my personal kind of train yoga.
Hmm. And how long is this whole track system? Do you know this? Have you measured
I'm
it?
I'm currently measuring it exactly with my latest toy. That's a car. It can measure everything, the steepness and the track length and everything else. I think it's more than 200 meters when adding all this together.
Mm.
But I
Wow.
will give you the exact figure in our next discussion.
Next talk. Okay. Um, yeah, can all see that you live your life to the fullest, actually. And I mentioned this at the beginning. You live your life in full trains, which comes from a German expression that I translated word by word. So, question to the audience as we're like wrapping up. What is your most important takeaway from this conversation? Think about it. You can write it in the comments, or if you're watching the replay later, you can think about it. And Eberhard, if someone watching right now or watching the replay wants to continue the conversation with you, where can they get in touch?
For me, it's very simple. The email eberhard.müller with UE at riskmuller.com, or you can contact Caroline. She will certainly forward any question to me.
Thank you so much for being here today, for being my guest, and for talking with me about risk and beyond. And I want to tell everybody watching, being who are here live and watching the replay, to stay tuned for more, because the next live will take place mid-August. I will be able to let you know about the exact date and the title in the next days. And if in the meantime you need some help, some support, you want to have a coach or a mentor by your side, or you're looking for someone, for a moderator or a keynote speaker for your next event, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Follow me also on Instagram and on YouTube. Thank you for being here. Thank you again, Eberhard. Have a nice day, everybody. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.